Hello, and welcome to the first of two videos that I'm putting together to showcase my skill and abilities with coding. These particular set of apps I created using .NET, the platform independent open source version, Avalonia for the user interface, and C#. To give you a background really quickly, I used to work for a big pharmaceutical distributor who had an offshoot of a pharmacy software solution company. I worked for them. We did a lot of work with pharmacy applications, point of sale, signature capture, those sort of things. One of the projects I did was an archive viewer for signature captures. You know, when you go into the pharmacy and you pick up your RXs and stuff, they have you sign for it and stuff, and maybe give you some information about like HIPAA laws, stuff like that, patient information leaflets explaining the side effects and the drug stuff, you know, the kind of information you get there. Well, this competitor used a very older system of like Visual Basic or something, and a DBase database, which suffered kind of problems with corruption of like the index files and things like that. And when that happened, the records were no longer accessible through their software. With the database corruption, that they were just kind of dead in the water. So I took it upon myself to research the DBase format. I think it was 4 or 5 at the time, and determined that I could quickly extract the record details, all their data, and yet leave all the indexing information, which was corrupted anyways, behind, and just basically build my own file of their data. And then, so I wrote some applications to find it, to go through, to pull all that data in, create a new database file. And then I wrote another application, a viewer, so they could actually go through that new database or file that I put together and pull up records, search on records like first name, last name, what have you, so they could stay in compliance, because the laws require that you basically have to retain records for upwards of like 7 years, and you have to be able to pull up for auditors or whatever information they may have. They want you to pull up specific information on a particular customer or orders on a particular day and what have you. And this allowed them to not only be able to access all that data again and stay in compliance and be able to do that for audits, but it also served to give my company a foot in the door to then introduce all these customers to our line of products, like our pharmacy application, our point of sale, and things of that nature. Unfortunately, this was some time ago. I can't find any information on it online from the company. I don't work for them anymore or anything. So what I decided to do was to bring my skill set up to date a little bit more anyways, that I would recreate that application only using today's technologies. And that's platform independent .NET. I'm using 8.0 LTS, the long-term support version, C#, and Avalonia, which is a open source user interface as a multi-platform. It works on Windows, Linux, Mac, even Android and Apple phones now. I'm just pretty much targeting the desktop environment because this is more of a desktop app. So without further ado, let's get into the first application. I have it right here. It's the RxSignatureArchiveGenerator, because I don't have customer data and I wouldn't want it because of the HIPAA compliance and stuff and safety with actually demonstrating anything with actual customer data would be very bad. So I wrote this first application in let's switch to it here in Visual Studio 2022, the community free edition, using C# again, .NET, and Avalonia. I started with a library project, and the library basically is just one big class file, or it's got a bunch of classes in there for records, things like that. It's got a separate namespace for the archive generator the archive viewer, just for the apps to use. Like the viewer has its specific classes to and methods to pull out to read data from the Rx archive file, the JSON file that it's created for the records, and a zip file that holds all the signature data. And then another class for actually the creation of those files here randomly, just using fake data. Okay, and then I pull that all together and use those methods in my first app, which is the archive generator. And this is, again, written with Avalonia and C#. So Avalonia is a XAML-based or XML-based descriptive language for creating the user interface. You can see here all of this information I put together. It's defined here. Now, I don't use the model view model controller method. I'm just using code behind, which means I name all the controls, like here, like the text box, I give it a name like text box %seniors, and then I access that directly in the code file itself. So if we go to the code file itself, I'm sorry, let's open that up here. Here we go. You can see where I access all of these, like text box %senior, where I set the handlers for text change, lost focus, all of that good stuff. Okay, so that's how this is written. We'll get back to the signature generator itself. This actually relies on a bunch of data that I created using internet sources like the US Census data. So it's basically open source. I put together these files of like common city names, common female first names, last names, common male first names, some drug information on like commonly used drugs for 2023, road types, avenue, drive, things of that nature, street names. Again, all of this is common data. It's just made up. And those are used by the generator app to actually create all the data that my viewer app will use to display. It also uses open source fonts or free fonts with their all of their licensing here, because I'll probably put this online at some point under like GitHub or something as a project, because data generators, you know, fake data, it always comes in handy, and having somebody who's already done that and figured out a lot of how to do that, it's always nice to use as a starting point. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything good for what I needed, so I built it all from scratch, including, and here's the thing I think that's unique about my version, is the ability to create mock signatures. Just little JPEG files that, like, for somebody, because this is like from a signature capture application at a pharmacy, that people would sign for their stuff. They would give you a signature, and then that signature would be saved like as a bitmap, BMP, or a JPEG file or something along those lines. So my app actually creates those kind of signatures based on the font, using a randomly selected one of these fonts in the list here. I can throw more in here, and then it'll use those as well as a random size within a range and a weight, whether it's bold or italicized or whatever. All right, so that's all part of the application. Now, when we get to the application, you'll see, you saw it briefly on the other screen, we have the top section here is basically all the settings that the generator needs. And these are defaulted, you know, like the state of the business here is in Michigan. That's just where I am. The business hours of operation, like open and close times in military format. Number of households to generate data for. Number of those households or orders are going to be for seniors. I have it 60%. Number of non-senior families that are percent of households are families, 75%. Maximum children, span of years, so the records will go back 7 years from today's date. I'm going to change that for this demonstration to just 1, because 7 years is a lot of data. Like the signature file is going to be over a gig in size. Average orders per day with a variance of, this is like a plus or minus 33% on that 60, so it'll stay within that range. The maximum number of scripts per order, Delivery percentage for seniors and non-seniors is basically how many of these orders will be flagged as delivery rather than, say, pickup orders. Local cities, like the spread of how many cities, we'll have like 8 different cities for the state that the business would be doing in. These 2 settings here are for out-of-state customers. If you check it, it'll randomly generate some business from out-of-state, and at what percentage. I have it as 3%. Okay, and you'll notice here too, all of this stuff is very reactive. Like here, if I go into the time, it's got a specific format. If I mess up that format, it locks it, so we can't generate the file because it's not in correct, way. And as soon as I correct that, like just hour and minutes is acceptable, so it'll go from there and allow me to generate that file again. But when it's in an incorrect state, it won't let me generate the file. That's just just good coding to make sure that you minimize the mistakes that a user could make. I'm going to go ahead and start this generating. Excuse me. And here you can see in the status down here, it's processing day by day, skipping weekends, and generating orders for 800 households that it's already put together, which is a total of 2,765 people. And this is all random. It's all made up data. None of it's real. So if we're looking through this and any of the data would happen to be a real person's name, it's just coincidental, based on common names on the U.S. Census and stuff like that. And here you go. It's going through. It's at about 150 days. Now, since this skips weekends because the business isn't open on weekends, it's going to generate for 200 and some odd days the data file. There's actually 2, an archive.json file and a zip file. As I said before, the zip file just contains signatures. They're stored in there. They're not compressed because JPEG compresses well enough. So they're just stored. That conveniently leaves them together. The process is now done. It created 15,564 orders with varying number of RXs. Orders with 1 RX is going to be 8,101. With 2 of them, 4,000. With 3 of them, 1,900. 4 of them, a little under 1,000, and with 5 of them, a little under 500, for a total of 28,387 scripts, of which 27,000 plus were completed. 190 were marked as abandoned. That means like nobody came and got them or whatever, and 932 were canceled. Okay, and so we've seen this app. I'm going to close this up, but we can go here and take a look real quick at the files that it created. We got the signature zip file. Again, these are just JPEG signatures that are stored in here, not compressed, because JPEGs compress already. Each one is this just made up signature using one of the random fonts installed in the fonts directory. You can see it's a picked size and weight, and then I have this void watermark just to, just as an extra security measure to, like, we're not trying to make this be valid. We want it to look good, but it's not valid data, and we don't pretend that it is. All right, and then let's see here, back out of here real quick. The JSON data file itself, here we'll look in Notepad real quick at that. It's just simple records, right? 1 line per record. It's got all the information that the pharmacy would typically capture, like the name, date of birth, the pickup signature, file name, stuff like that. And you'll see that in the viewer on the second app a little more closely. And this data, it gets pretty good. Now, this is not too bad. For 1 year's worth of data, it's about 12 megabytes for the signature, for the data, which is all the username, stuff like that we have. And then the signatures themselves, that's about 180 megabytes in size. All right. And that's pretty much for the generation thing. You can do multiple ones, rename them, like I've done it for the viewer, to store 1, store 2. We'll take a look at that in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope and appreciate, I really hope that you will check out the second video, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Thank you.